Gothenburg has this work ethic, and it's got this attachment to Volvo that would be impossible to replicate anywhere else, and that is worth a huge amount to the company, because we know that we can harness that energy and that excitement and that passion from within Gothenburg to make sure that the company continues to strive and thrive and perform.
Välkommen till ett specialavsnitt av Business Göteborg, där vi ska få en exklusiv intervju med Volvo Cars nya vd Jim Rowan. Jag sitter här i ett litet rum vid sidan av Lindholmen Conference Center, där vi just har tagit emot hundratals gäster i ett live-samtal med Jim Rowan. Och ni ska få höra det bästa från samtalet tillsammans med en analys, och det är det vi ska göra i det här rummet. Så välkommen hit till Business Göteborg, där vi ska få höra vad egentligen skotten som på många sätt har givits nycklarna till vår stad vill med Volvo och Göteborg. Ja, välkommen alltså till ett specialavsnitt av Business Göteborg. Jag heter Emanuel Karlsten och vid min sida har jag Henrik Einarsson, etableringschef vid Business Region Göteborgs, som ju lyssnat på detta samtal som ni också ska få höra snart. Och då har man väl lite att se fram emot, Henrik?
Absolut, och jag tyckte det gav en väldigt bra inblick i vilken stor och omfattande transformation vi står inför.
Vi ska också säga att den som vill kan se detta samtal i sin helhet som video på hemsidan. Men i den här podden kommer vi alltså lyssna på vad som sägs, och du och jag, Henrik, kommer sätta det lite kontext, flika in med kommentarer och analyser kring vad som sagts. Och om det är någonting som vi ska börja att säga så är det väl två saker. Dels att Jim Rowan, denna 56-årige skotte, har landat en jätteposition i en helt ny bransch. Han kommer ju från en dammsugartillverkare senast, kan man ju säga. Men också att han är betydelsefull, inte bara för Volvo utan också Göteborg.
Volvo Cars, det är Sveriges näst största företag räknat i omsättning och vår största arbetsgivare. De besluten de tar kommer påverka oss alla i Göteborg.
Vi ska kasta oss in i samtalet och vi ska lyssna lite på hur det lät när jag försökte fråga honom om just detta, hur han ser på Göteborg givet allt detta. Och var med nu för att ljudet är lite annorlunda givet att vi stod på en scen med andra mickar.
Hi. Hey, welcome. Hey. Please. Thank you for coming. And
thanks for the invitation.
Let me just start by asking, you've been living here for how long now?
Well, I've been here, I guess, officially for a couple of months now.
All right.
Yep.
And how do you like it?
Well, for me, it's easy to assimilate because I come from Glasgow. So my hometown is Glasgow in the west of Scotland. So climate-wise, I joked with some of your colleagues that I probably come from a place where it rains more often than it does in Gothenburg. So that part's fine. In actual fact, it's nice to be back in that climate, having grown up in this kind of climate. West Coast, very similar towns, so industrial cities. So Glasgow's an industrial city as well. Yeah. And like Gothenburg, Glasgow was steeped in shipbuilding as an industry and had to reinvent itself completely using technology, I guess, as a bridge to the future. And it's going through at the same time as Gothenburg. It's going through this transition of manufacturing, industrial, let's say sector, to service and industrial, to service and software, and eventually trying to get towards that route of innovation and research, which of course becomes a lot more meaningful to the long-term viability of the city itself. So lots of similarities. And the thing I like about Gothenburg is that it's a working town. Mm-hmm. You can feel that.
How?
Well, you can feel it amongst the people. It's when you have big companies like SKF and Volvo, both Volvo Group and Volvo Cars here, then it's steeped in an industry, in a work ethic of, it's a kind of harsher climate. People need to get up every day. They need to go into the factories. Not a lot of people can work from home, and that basis. And it drives this level of camaraderie, and it drives a level, I think, of inclusion within the community itself. And I find that very, very similar to what I experienced when I lived in Glasgow.
Has anything surprised you moving here? Because you have moved here, right? Yeah.
Yeah. We'll probably talk about it in the future. So Gothenburg's going through this huge transformation at this point in time. And it's great to see that the town is flourishing so well. But with that comes some risks. How do you keep up? How do you feed the need for skills? How do you feed the need for schools? How do you feed the need for housing, accommodation, amenities? And that's some of the challenges that I think that Gothenburg's already starting to face right now. I'll give you an example. When I came here, I was looking to rent an apartment for a couple of months before I would buy an apartment. That in itself is a challenge. And so, but that is something which the city needs to be able to cope with if it's going to attract lots of new talent to the region itself. So that I guess, back to your question, that was a little bit of a surprise. I thought it would have been much easier, given the vibrancy of the city and given how quickly the city has grown. I thought being able to hire an apartment for a short lease period would have been something which was quite simple. And that became a research project for me. So,
you're 57 years old. You're married.
I'm actually 56 years old.
All right.
I'll be 50. It's important at this age that you get it right. So
obviously, yeah. You have one dog.
I have one dog.
Okay,
yes.
that was right. And 4 children, right?
I'm sorry.
4 children.
And 4 children. Yeah.
And
or was it 4 dogs and 1 child? No, you're right. One dog and 4 children.
The numbers,
that's right.
Yeah. All right. So, and one of the children and the dog is coming here with you to Göteborg. I've read somewhere.
Yeah, actually, 2 of my children are already in the UK, so they went through university in the UK. Another kid goes to the UK at the end of the summer for university, and then my wife and my youngest kid is still in Singapore. He needs to finish school there in Singapore.
Okay. Being from Scotland, moving to Göteborg, I don't know if you knew this, but many of Göteborg's founding fathers actually made that time. You know about this?
Yep.
Yeah, I learned researching
including, I believe, Chalmers University itself.
So,
including Chalmers University had a big connection.
I was about to mention Chalmers, Kaler, that also has the name of the park up on Ramberg here. Dixon and Campbell as well. All of who during the early days of Göteborg had a huge impact on the city and making it one of Sweden's and Northern Europe's largest trade cities, of course. So in a way, you're next in line, I guess, of generations of Scots.
But those, a lot of that heritage and a lot of that history, again, comes out of shipbuilding.
Yeah.
And it was the trade routes, obviously, across to China and so on. And I think that's what, again, very, very similar climates in terms of the west coast of Scotland and the west coast of Sweden itself, and then that history in shipbuilding as well. I think threw people together from Sweden and Scotland, and let's not forget they're reasonably close geographically as well.
But this tradition, or I don't know how to call it. I'm curious about how you think about Göteborg in this context. Like you are the CEO of Göteborg's largest company, and this means you kind of have the keys to this city. You're running a brand that pretty much is the city as well. Volvo is so close to heart to so many people, and Volvo as a company carries so much of this city, both by investments and by sponsorship. So the choices you make, I guess, on what to sponsor and invest in will have tremendous effect on the future of the city and this region. So I'm curious, how important is the city of Göteborg to Volvo Cars and to you?
Well, it's the spiritual home of the company, right? And you can never underestimate that part itself. So it has, as I said earlier, Gothenburg has this work ethic, and it's got this attachment to Volvo that would be impossible to replicate anywhere else. And that is worth a huge amount to the company, because we know that we can harness that energy and that excitement and that passion from within Gothenburg to make sure that the company continues to strive and thrive and perform. And you see that. I mean, it's much bigger than Volvo. And I knew Volvo as a brand before I joined the company, of course, but I knew it from outside of Gothenburg. When you actually come here, and Volvo had always stood as a brand which was very authentic. It was steeped in humility and honesty and Scandinavian work ethic and design. But that was my perception from the outside. When you actually get inside the company, you feel it's that and a whole bunch more. There's this real attachment that people really want to make sure that the company can continue to thrive and survive. And of course, we're coming up on a 100-year anniversary. In April 2027, the company will be 100 years old. Very, very few companies get to be 100 years old. And I take the responsibility of being given the CEO role to get us to become 200 years old, let's say, because the foundations in which we lay over the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years will have huge, profound effects on how successful we can be for the next 10, 20 or 30 years. And the reason I say that is because the industry is in massive transformation. The industry is in a huge transformation right now, and it's much, much more profound than most people realize. And the decisions that we make, the make versus buy decisions, the hiring decisions that we make in the next 4 or 5 years are critically important to the longevity and the health, wealth, and vitality of the company for many, many years to come.
And is that the same for the city? Is it also equally important or important as well for you to be in Gothenburg?
Yeah, well, I'm talking about Volvo Cars and the specific choices that we need to make for Volvo Cars.
Sure. In
terms of the industry that we're in and the transformation of that industry at this particular point in time. But I think in general terms that there is a transition towards new technology. So most companies need to be able to harness those new technologies in order to be successful for the future. And of course, those new technologies will be different in each industry. Mm-hmm. The application of those technologies will be different in each industry. But nevertheless, companies will need to figure out how they digitize their company, first and foremost. That will be universal regardless of whichever industry that you're involved in. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there's much more nuance to the specific technologies you need to adapt for your specific industry.
But what does that mean that you're focusing outside of Göteborg? Because you answered that on the question of if that's how you believe Göteborg, what role Göteborg will play in the future.
Gothenburg plays a massive role, but it's not the only. We're a global company. So there's no way that you can hire people in Gothenburg who really understand what the Chinese consumer wants in a car. That if you start to do that and you start to become far too insular, then you miss the markets. So what you need to do is you need to make sure that you understand the core purpose of the company and then how you add on to that, the different skills in order for you to become a very successful global company. Mm-hmm. And of course, we're not the first person to have thought of that. But that's something which we continue to do. We continue to look at each of the different markets and the needs for those markets and how we can get those skills and design choices that we need in order to be successful across the world. We won't sell enough cars in Sweden alone.
No, I'm not talking about the market. But do you still believe that this will be the base for all of that?
Of course, yeah.
All right. I was a bit worried there that you were.
Well, you're trying to take me down a route that is.
You're not even on your mind, all right?
No, it's not even on my mind.
Okay.
But we have a huge amount of people in Gothenburg. I said right at the very top of the conversation that I think this is the spiritual home of the company. This is the heartbeat of the company. This is where people really understand. This is the passion.
Right.
This is all of the investments that we've made. We've just made an investment to bring Northvolt batteries here, so it's right aligned to our factory, so that we can have the battery and the battery technology, which is one of the big things for the future, so that is fully aligned to the manufacturing. Where we've invested in mega casting, which again is part of the future, so that we can continue to be the epicenter of what Volvo Cars stands for here.
Här hörde vi alltså Jim Rowan prata lite om hur han ser på Volvos betydelse för Göteborg och Göteborgs framtid, kan man nästan säga också att det handlar om ju. För vad Volvo gör kommer ju påverka oss. Och det är lite som att vi inte nådde fram till varandra, eller att jag var orolig i alla fall. Att han var på väg och hinta om att Göteborg är inte så viktigt för oss längre, Henrik. Utan det kanske blir internationell etablering. Han börjar prata om internationella marknader. Men sen kommer jag tillbaka och verkligen hamrade in. Nej, det är klart att Volvo är hjärtat för Göteborg.
Och han relaterade också till sin bakgrund just från Glasgow och verkar liksom ha väldigt stor förståelse för hur en stor arbetsgivare påverkar den lokala ekonomin. Och jag pratade med även honom inför det här samtalet, och direkt så kom han ju faktiskt in på det här liksom med att prata om regioners transformation och utveckling över tid, från liksom industri till tjänster till bli innovationsdriven ekonomi. Jag känner en väldigt stor förståelse för hur ett stort företag påverkar den lokala ekonomin. Det känns ju betryggande.
Och det kanske tydligaste exemplet på hur viktigt Göteborg är väl den nyetablering som ju alldeles nyligen har beslutats om här i Göteborg.
Ja, det är ett styrkebesked när Northvolt och Volvo Cars gemensamt går ut och säger att man kommer att etablera en batterifabrik i Göteborg med 3000 anställda direkt i fabriken när den är i drift 2026. 2025 till och med kan den börja driften. Och vi vet att spridningseffekten här kommer bli ytterligare kanske upp mot 3000 anställda. Så det, och att man satsar på ett nytt forskningscenter som man förlagt här på Lindholmen faktiskt, i byggnaden jämte oss där vi sitter nu. 300 personer minst kommer att rekrytera som ska jobba med att forska fram nästa generations batterier. Det är ju en jätteförtroende som Göteborg får i och med de här 2 beskeden.
Vi ska hoppa vidare in i samtalet och vi talade ju givetvis om den känsliga tid som vi är i och hur det här påverkar den närmaste framtiden. Vi lyssnar vidare.
Your background is in tech. Your last position was as the CEO for a favorite company of mine, actually, a startup called Ember Mugs, which is a heated coffee mug and the best one on the market. And I know this because I was actually on the Indiegogo Fund 2015 and bought the mug. And before Ember Mug, you were the CEO for home appliance company Dyson, and suddenly Volvo called. One of the world's greatest car manufacturers. Did you ever expect a call like that?
So let me take you back a little bit. So actually, I was the interim CEO for Ember because I made an investment in the company because I like the technology. Like you, I like the technology.
Yeah.
At the same time, I took on 4 board positions and I was an advisor for KKR. So that was the and this is important because when I stepped down from Dyson as the CEO for Dyson, I'd been with Dyson for about 8 years. I decided that I was going to do something different at that point in time, and I joined 4 different boards. I joined KKR as an advisor, and I became the interim CEO for a startup company. And I enjoyed it, and it was good fun. What I learned at that point in time, at that point I was only 54, so then I learned that that's not how I'm built. I'm not built for plurality.
Oh, really?
I missed being able to get my hands around and get my teeth into a singular purpose, which is a singular company, effectively. Get up in the morning, you think about that company, you think about how you can make it better, you go to sleep at night, and that's what keeps you up at night. How do we continue to make this company better, and how do we continue to drive improvements? And so when Volvo called, I was ready to go back into something full-time that I could invest my entire energy and experience and passion in for the next.
But it was something completely different, of course, from what you did
see,
before.
not at all. This is the big change that people miss. This is the profound change that people miss. So we have 43,000 people at Volvo Cars. The vast majority of which know automotive really well because they've been doing it for decades. The big change is not, and we talk about electrification, but electrification is the tip of the iceberg. If it was just about electrification and taking out an internal combustion engine and replacing that with an electrical propulsion engine, then we would be done by now. That transition would have happened and everyone would have moved forward. It's not about that. It's about technology. It's about electrification, but even within that electrification, it's about the electric motor, it's about the inverter, it's about the battery, it's about the battery chemistry, it's about the materials in the battery, the anodes and the cathodes, it's about the battery management system that sits on top of that, which is the software, and how that connects to the core compute architecture of the company, how that connects to the silicon layer, how that silicon layer through software connects to the application layer like radars and cameras and sensors and LiDAR. That's technology. That's not automotive. So in that sense, I don't think it's a different industry at all. I think the automotive industry now is going through this massive technology change, and it's bringing in a lot of the technologies which have existed in other industries right into the very heart of the automotive industry, and it's happening like that. It's happening immediately. It's not one thing at a time. It's not like we'll do electrical propulsion this year, and then next year we'll decide to go on core compute, and then the following year we'll decide to go to connectivity and cloud and data analytics. All of that is coming in at the same time, and that's really what's making the transition so interesting. So that's on the technical side. On the commercial side, you've got a similar transition that's going on right now, which is how do you reach the next consumer? How do you sell cars directly? How do you understand what that consumer is in terms of the e-commerce engine? we made an investment through our technology fund in a company called CarWow, which is an online car sales company in the UK. The company's pretty young, and we made an investment through our tech fund so that we could really understand how that works. So CarWow is basically a UK company, although they have other operations in other parts of Europe, but it started in the UK. 13% of all cars are sold through CarWow in the UK. 28% of all used cars are sold through CarWow in the UK. And that's happened in a very, very short period of time. So that kind of sizes up the size of the commercial transformation that's happening at the same time. And then all of that is underpinned, of course, with carbon-free and how we take a company completely carbon neutral. First of all, on the battery, electric propulsion side, but then through our whole supplier base, and eventually the entire company will become carbon neutral by 2050 as well. So
you said that a strategy going forward will be to recruit talent from tech rather than the auto industry.
Sorry, I need to correct you on that. I never said that.
Right.
We will recruit talent from tech as well as the auto industry. And I need to keep coming back to this because there's this sub-narrative that doesn't exist, that a lot of the time people try and insert the sub-narrative that we're no longer going to become an automotive company, we're going to become a tech company. No, we're going to be a technology automotive company. It's the combination that makes it powerful. Yeah. Now that we're moving away from automotive and becoming a cell phone on wheels, that's not the case. Mm. What we're doing is we're blending the latest technology together with the latest technology in automotive. So, for example, megacasting is something which is very, very important to us, and that is steeped in the history of the chassis build of our vehicles itself.
When talking about this, you listed companies like Google and Spotify as interesting talent pool for Volvo Cars. Now, we also discussed that it's quite hard to find even a lease in the city, and it's also hard to find talents when you're competing with all of these people. How are you planning to achieve this, to make Volvo to reach the best talents?
So we have a very strong brand, and I think people understand exactly where we're trying to take the company. And of course, that's part of my job to make sure that they do understand, not just the investment community, of course, which is important in itself, but potential employees. Why would a new software engineer or a new computer science grad, why would they want to join Volvo rather than join, say, Google or Apple or Facebook or whoever? And it's incumbent upon us to make sure that they understand the journey that we're on. What we have is not just a super strong brand and I think a fantastic culture within our company, but we have a real purpose. We have a real purpose in so much as there's two things which I think drive that. One is that we are trying to be one of the pioneers that takes global mobility carbon-free. That is a massive purpose-driven statement that we can help to attract the right people. And a lot of young people these days, a lot of those young talent, that young talent that we need, they want to be associated with companies that are authentic and drive real purpose. The second thing that we're trying to do from a safety perspective is we're trying to get to zero collisions, using software, using our engineering teams so that we can have the latest LiDAR, camera, radar, sensor technology that allows Volvo Cars to become, we're already the safest car if you're in a crash, but we want to get to the point where it's almost impossible that you're in a crash because of the technology that we put into Volvo's software and sensor technology. And that in itself, saving lives on that side and saving the planet on the other side becomes a very big purpose driver for us to get the best talent. And I think that's going to be one of the reasons why people want to join Volvo rather than other companies.
So
you still have the challenge, though, and you need to be honest here. You just still have the challenge in attracting all the talent that you need to Gothenburg. And right now, the top talent around the world, especially in computer science and software and even in electronics, they have a choice where they live. They may choose not to come to Gothenburg. We cannot discount them just because they don't want to come to Gothenburg. So it's incumbent upon us that make sure that we have this talent base around the world, this network, this satellite of talent that we use to our advantage within Volvo Car to bring and harvest all that talent together to make our products and services the best possible. And that way then we'll compete with whoever's out there. So it's a combination between finding the best talent in Gothenburg, continue to grow the city here, but also finding the best talent around the world and bringing them into the Volvo network so that they can be effective and help us build.
So let's talk about that goal that you have. At the moment, around 7% of the Volvo cars sold are electric. The goal is, of course, to increase this to 50% within 3 years. That sounds like a tough challenge.
Well, it's not when you actually look at... So when you actually put the data on that, if you look at the line, so we were 2 quarters ago, Q3, we were 4%. 2 quarters later, we're 8%. And of course, right now we're in a situation whereby we've got constrained supply on certain parts of material. So, but if you look at towards the end of the year, that projected growth will be well into double figures. Okay, so that's coming out of the back of this year. Remember, that's basically with one model. We've got 2 models. We've got the XC40 and the C40. Next, at the end of this year, we'll announce our new, let's call it XC90, fully electric. So we'll announce that. Next year, we'll announce another car, and the following year, another car. So by the start of 2025, we'll be in a position where we have 3 times as many vehicles in play as we have right now. And so that's the vehicles themselves. And then what we're seeing is the thirst and the hunger for electric vehicles, for BEVs, especially for Volvo. We're seeing that as increasing dramatically as well. So I'm actually confident that we'll get to the 50% by 2025 quite effectively.
But there is bumps on the road, so to speak. There's, of course, all the commotion in the world with we come from the pandemic. We're in warring with Ukraine, and we have a complicated situation in many ways, just like you said, and especially within electrical vehicles, it will be affected through higher prices for producing, and with prices on batteries also rising, and time delivery is increasing. What is your view on all this commotion that's surrounding you?
Yeah, I mean, there's turbulence right now in the system, that's for sure. Usually you get these things one at a time. Usually you get a global financial crisis, or you have a dot-com bubble burst, or you have maybe a tsunami and a hurricane, and it disrupts the supply chain for a port strike. This has came at the same time. So right now you've got 4 or 5 factors. You've still got the remnants of the semiconductor shortage. You've got the pandemic in China, which is still continuing to bite in. The war in Ukraine, rising inflation, first time in 20 years, underlying inflation has gone up. You've got rising raw material prices. But this is not unique to Volvo. This is the entire industry. Not just the auto industry, but the entire industry is affected by this. This is kind of what we get paid for. That's our job. Our job is to navigate through these changes and to build a resistant and a resilient supply chain. We have a great team of people. We're working through it. You know, despite all of these issues and changes and headwinds that we're facing, every day we get up, we get back in the fight. We figure out another way through that particular challenge of the day, and we march on. So it will come. We will get through this, but we need to make sure that we don't become paralyzed by the short-term issues of the day and then sacrifice the long-term strategy of the company. We know what the long-term strategy of the company is, and by the way, we're unique in terms of one of the incumbent, let's say, auto manufacturers in the world. It made it easy for me when I came in as the CEO that we had already made that statement to the world, to the investor community, to our own people. We had said, we will be 100% electric car company by 2030. We will be halfway there by 2025. There's no ifs, there's no buts, there's no maybes, there's no we're kind of thinking about it. We burnt those bridges behind us, and for us, the only way is forward. That means that every investment decision we make, every hiring decision that we make, every design choice that we make for our cars is based on that singular fact that we will be an electric car company by 2030. We'll be halfway there by 2025, which, as you say, is only 3 years away. That allows us to marshal the energy and the collective talent that we have within our business towards that end. There's no distraction. It's a singular focus. And when I look at some of our competitors, they're kind of a halfway. Well, we're kind of thinking about it. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. And so for me, because we know where the true North Star is for our company, at least for the next 5, 6, 7 years, then that's what we're marching towards. Back to your question, yes, we're in this situation right now whereby there's a lot of turbulence in the supply chain. There's some rising inflation. But even if you just take the argument that electric cars will be more expensive than internal combustion. Of course, because the volume right now is still with ICE. As soon as that volume starts to change, you start to see the economies of scale change towards BEV. BEV is still a very small percentage of the total cars. Once you get that leverage, once more and more people come in and there's more battery capacity, you'll start to see those prices come down.
All right.
But also you need to take into account, if you fill your car right now with a mile or a kilometre of electrical power versus a fossil fuel, it is half the price. And if you're going to keep that car, if you're going to fill your tank every week, every 2 weeks or whatever, and you're going to keep that car for 5 or 6 years, it more than offsets the price that you would pay for an electric vehicle.
But do you think also will change the way we own cars? There's a lot about talk about subscription and things like that. Is that something Volvo thinks a lot about?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think when you get to... So first of all, you've got to look to the next generation as well. So Gen Z right now are about 18, so they're coming into the car market. They're first-time cars. There'll be first-time car buyers very shortly. And even the tail end of millennials will definitely want to own cars, and we see this already. When we offer subscription-based ownership to Volvo, potential Volvo customers, the age of that ownership drops by 10 years. I'm going to say that again. The age of the ownership drops by 10 years when you offer subscription-based ownership. Why? Because they don't feel they're signing up to a $50,000 car. They're signing up to 3 months, which is the minimum subscription. They don't keep it for 3 months. They keep it for much, much longer than that. But this is the new world. You need to be able to offer subscription-based ownership as well as full leasing, as well as full finance purchasing. The really interesting part about that is when you get to a point where you have products like the XC40, and you can offer subscription-based ownership, we can start to pick up then first-time car buyers for the first time. And then, as long as we look after those customers, we can see them all the way through life as they have a family, if they get a dog, they want a second car, they move to the country. Most people change to a BEV as a second car, if it's a 2-car family. So I'm not quite ready to change because this is still new technology for me, so they go to PHEV first, and then from PHEV they go to BEV. And quite often what we see is they have a PHEV, and then the second, maybe their older car was an internal combustion, but they'll change that fully to BEV because now they've got confidence because they've already owned a PHEV. So this is a transition that's been going on for 4 or 5 or 6 years now, and we're starting to see it now really pick up speed.
Det finns flera saker som är intressanta här, Henrik, tänker jag. Det är ju speciellt att han var så tydlig med en särskild tidsperiod. De kommande 4 till 5 åren kommer vara kritiska ungefär, sa ju Jim Rowan här. Vad tänker du om det?
Ja, men det säger ju någonting om hur fort det går omvandlingen i fordonsindustrin och också hur viktigt det är att under den här perioden verkligen lyckas. Och jag tänker också att han hintade också liksom, vad är det vi behöver göra regionalt för att stödja den här utvecklingen. Alltså produkten och utveckling, det står ju de för i det här fallet att försöka bli världsledande och lyckas på marknaden. Men han pratar också om att vi blir ett technology automotive company och det där ställer ju krav på oss som region också då, liksom att kunna attrahera en annan typ av kompetens. Vi är duktiga på att bygga fordon, vi behöver också bli ännu duktiga på att attrahera en annan tech-kompetens. Och kompetensförsörja fordonsindustrin och övrig industri under längre sikt. Och det är ju det här stora skiftet vi står inför.
Jag tycker att det levande gjordes på ett bra sätt av Jim när han pratade om hela det här spektra eller svårighet, eller gick också in i lite exempel på vad som komma skall och på samma gång som man kanske får en väldigt stark framtidstro eller bara känner wow, vad mycket som kan hända eller kommer hända, så kan man också känna lite, men oj, ska vi kunna klara av att matcha allt det här i Göteborg? Jim Rowan hade själv problem att hitta ens en lägenhet här i stan, och utöver att vi ska hitta världens bästa talanger, då ska vi liksom också ha en infrastruktur i allt övrigt som ska liksom fungera. Det är utmaningar verkligen.
Ja, men det är det verkligen, och vi behöver bli bättre på att ta emot internationella talanger. Vi har ju lovat nu i samband med batterifabriken, och vi har också etablerat ett International House i Göteborg just som ska jobba med den biten och försöka underlätta mottagandet och göra även då för medföljande så vi får dem att liksom verkligen trivas i Göteborg. Det är jätteviktigt framöver. Och jag ser också att vi behöver jobba och stärka den här tech-kompetensen som man pratar om. Alltså fordonsindustrin går ihop med tech-industrin och det blir en automotive tech-industri tillsammans. Så det är fler kompetenser som behöver rekryteras för att kunna följa den här liksom transformeringen som han beskrev. Och en del i det är faktiskt också att vi försöker nu skapa ett fysiskt område här på Lindholmen med lite lägre hyror där vi ska försöka promota och skapa en attraktiv miljö för scale-up-bolag. Som vi kallar the yard.
Men det är ju triggande. Jag tycker att man blir positiv. Man blir glad ju av att höra den här framtidstron och höra honom prata de här termerna. För att då blir ju också allt det här teoretiska som man kan prata om, the yard och satsningar hit och dit. Det blir så tydligt vilket ekosystem det kommer ingå i. Om allt det här ska ske under den här korta tidskritiska perioden. Inte allt, men ändå att det kommer hända så väldigt mycket. Då fattar man ju att det här är liksom ingenting som vi har liksom 30 års horisont på. Det måste hända nu. För slaget pågår nu. Liksom. Det är nu som det vinner eller försvinner nästan.
Och även om en del av satsningarna kanske då liksom är ganska så avgränsade så är det precis som du säger, de spelar en viktig roll i att få systemet att fungera. De här näringslivspolitiska satsningarna som till exempel International House, det är några personer och en lokal som vi sätter upp rent konkret. Men det är en jätteviktig del för att få hela kompetensförsörjningen att fungera och det är det vi kan bidra med från det offentliga. På samma sätt satsningen mot The Yard som kommer på Lindholmen, det är också en liten del. Men det är en viktig del i den stora helheten som vi behöver komplettera med.
Ja, spännande. Vi lyssnar vidare.
Our time is almost up. I just wanted to finish by asking you one question. We talked about Chalmers, Kaler, and many of the Scottish families, and they all left a huge mark on the city long after they were gone. What mark do you hope to leave on this city in this region?
Yeah, so I don't profess, and again, I'm not going to get drawn into being compared to the people at Chalmers. These are people who bat way above my body weight. I'm happy. I will be happy that together with the team, and I get asked this question: what's your best achievement? My best achievement in the businesses that I've been involved in has been to work as a team. I'm a team player because I like soccer, so I like team sports. When you can get a whole bunch of people together and they can achieve things that they never thought was possible, and they look back and they think, how the hell did we do that? Then that for me is the biggest achievement, is that Volvo Cars will continue to thrive and survive for the next 100 years.
Jim Rowan, I think I speak for the whole city and our region when I wish you all the best and good luck with all in the near and the distant future. Thank you so much for coming here, and please everyone give Jim Rowan a hand.
Det var alltså hela intervjun med Volvo Cars nya vd Jim Rowan. Vad säger du, Henrik?
Mycket intressant samtal, och jag tar med mig det här lugnet som Jim förmedlade när vi pratade om oroligheter i konjunkturen just nu. Va? Hur tydligt han sa att nej, men det här är ju vår grej. Liksom. Vi går till jobbet varje dag och så löser vi saker ett i taget och så där vi march on. Det här lugnet och inte bli stressad över den situation som vi ser. Det tar jag med mig.
Det kanske vi alla borde ta med oss i de här skakiga tiderna som det ändå är just nu. Spännande. Tack så mycket Henrik Einarsson, och såklart tack också Jim Rowan för att ni var med i Business Göteborg. Tack för den här gången.